Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. Today, we are joined by Chris Morandi, who is the founder of Mainspring Wellness. Excited to hear more about his story. He's located up in Northern Kentucky. Chris, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks for having me, John. My name is Chris. I am the co-founder, executive director of Mainspring Wellness, which is a mental health therapy practice here in Northern Kentucky. We've been around for, 5 or 6 years now, taking this business seriously. And we serve the folks in our community, mostly adults, and we do some work in school settings as well. Just trying to bring a wellness model to mental health treatment.
Excellent. So you kind of went 5 or 6, 4 or 5, 6. I think he told me last time. This kind of started as a side gig. I know a lot of therapists do that, right? They're working for somebody and then they kind of start doing things on their own. So you're one of the ones that actually eventually made that leap and said, okay, I'm leaving a firm and I'm going and hanging up my own shingle, right?
Yeah. I joke that this is Mainspring 2.0. Mainspring 1.0 was truly a side hustle between me and my business partner. Okay. We were working in community mental health, which I could get into later about the differences, but we just saw some opportunities there's some gaps in the system and like in regards to providing good care to certain populations. So the first version of this was a lot of court-ordered treatment. It was anger management. It was domestic violence stuff. People who were involved in the court system, we were trying to take care of to keep them out of jail, essentially. Right. And that came with we were way over our heads. We had no idea what we were doing. It was good work therapy-wise, but learning the system was a whole different ballgame. So we shut it down. And then right around COVID time, we decided to restart it with a new model, a new structure, and kind of do it the right way, so to speak. So here we are now.
So what's the right way? When you say that, what do you mean?
For sure. So we grew up in a community mental health setting. Community mental health settings are, nothing wrong with what I'm about to say, but a little lower SES, socioeconomic status, mostly Medicaid folks, people with a lot of, day-to-day issues, food insecurity, those kind of things. And the system that houses those people is a little conveyor belty. It's like, get them in, get them out. It's totally overwhelmed. And that brings kind of bad environments, doctors' offices, places with no windows where you're doing therapy. It's just not conducive to therapy world. Okay. And then on the other side, you have private practice, which is a little bit nicer offices. It is more commercial insurance, self-pay. And so the founding principle was like, how do we have an environment where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable? That's where the good work is. But give access to folks who don't normally have it. So we did a lot of work in regards to getting what we call paneled, like able to bill insurance companies with Medicaid. And we have some grant stuff, basically just trying to get all the barriers, both financial and just like environmental down. So I think that's the right way to do it.
Okay, cool. So you use wellness in your title with therapy. And that's, when I think wellness, I'm usually thinking someone who's like looking at your, what you're eating, your what's the word I'm looking for? Your diet, your exercise, all that kind of stuff. But you're using wellness with mental health. So I found that to be a little interesting as I was researching you. So talk about what that word means to you.
Sure. So I think, old school therapy is really based in the medical model, which, has its benefits. But I think the ripple effect of that is I think people think going to therapy is like going to the doctor. So you're sick
Mm.
and you need to be fixed, right? You
All
go when
right.
you're sick.
Yeah.
We see it a little bit more holistically. So you take care of your diet to work on your physical health. You go to the
Mm.
gym to work on your physical health, and you come to therapy to work on your mental health.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between mental illness and mental health. And those words
Mm.
get interchanged a lot,
Yeah.
right? But, I think most therapists would say everybody could benefit from therapy. But I
Yeah.
think the foundation of that is we can all get more, mentally and emotionally healthier.
Yeah.
Um, and so rather than you're going to the doctor, I kind of see it as you're going to a nutritionist, you're going to the gym, you're going to whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And the foundation is wellness, not fixing your sickness.
Yeah. Excellent. I 100% agree. I I've I've had good, for the most part, good mental health through my life, but
Yeah.
I've gone through, I've gone through periods of anxiety and stress and all those sorts of things, losing a job, different things that drive that, right?
Yeah,
And years ago, I got introduced to the idea of mental fitness, like that. And I love that term because, I don't do it like I used to, but I used to go to the gym and lift some weights, do some cardio, try to stay somewhat fit. And that resonated with me to go, gosh, I need to do the same thing with my mental health. I need to, practice mindfulness, have some time, have some quiet time in the morning before I dive into all the stresses of the day, and things like that. And that's how I define, or how I've learned to define, mental fitness. And I find, man, most of my clients, I mean, most of the business owners I know, most of the people I run across need a dose of that.
for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. It's one of the things that we don't learn in school,
yeah,
or we don't really like pay attention to in our upbringing. I've been saying forever it'd be awesome to have like an emotions 101 class in
yeah.
elementary school, just to
Oh,
kind
wow.
of understand what's going on with
Yeah,
inside your head. Because I think a lot of folks work to either minimize or just totally avoid it. Right?
yeah,
I just need to work harder. The
yeah,
old school, especially for us guys, like the old school is just like man up,
yeah,
toughen up, go.
yeah.
Um,
Bite the
and
bullet, get back in there.
yeah, it's not very helpful. So, yes.
Well, it works for a while, and what I found is in my first 20 plus years, I was in corporate and I was working, 55, 60-hour weeks. And, it was like, that was the answer. It was like, oh, our project's behind. Let's start working on Saturdays. Let's,
Yes.
that was the model then. And when you're young, you're like, yeah, I got the energy. I got, and as you get older, you start going, man, I'm like facing burnout here,
Yep,
and
for sure.
there's the answer to burnout is not just work harder. I mean, that's actually the uh, it's contrary. It's the exact opposite you need to do.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've seen some people really face major burnout because they just didn't know how to kind of back off
Yeah.
and get that rest they need. Um,
Yep.
so that's cool. So so you mentioned a lot of trigger words to those that work in the healthcare industry. You mentioned income levels. You mentioned Medicaid, uh, private pay, all those types of things.
Yeah,
What I mean, and I've worked with enough folks in this industry to know uh, these are pain points for this industry right now. So,
for
uh,
sure.
and I mean, it just keeps getting worse and worse. So tell me a little bit about what you're dealing with as a business owner, with just the changing, I don't know if you call it regulatory environment or just the federal environment and state environment.
Yeah, yeah. It is the number one challenge, I would think, at this point.
Yeah,
Because I think at the core of therapists is, we're helpers. We want to help people.
mm,
We want to, help people be well. And the barriers that clients face are the same barriers that we face. Um, they want to insurance should cover their mental health treatment,
yeah,
and we should be reimbursed for our services, right?
Yeah.
And it really is, everything currently is like automation. So like when we submit, now I'm in the weeds a little bit, but when we
That's okay.
submit claims for services, humans aren't touching those things, right?
Right.
So they see it, they either approve or disapprove. And if they don't approve it, when you call to ask why they did, the human you're talking to on the phone has no idea. So
Yeah.
we try to do a lot of like risk mitigation. We try to open up other avenues for payments in terms of like grants and other things,
Yeah.
just to keep things organized. And ultimately, like we have to change the way we provide treatment to overcome these things. So if we
Yeah.
wanted to see somebody weekly, sometimes we got to move it to biweekly just because
That's
of
all
the
they'll
reality of the
reimburse.
world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that changes what happens in the room too. There's a lot more like homework and self-guided tasks and all those things,
Mm.
um, rather than going through. So, we try to have the ideal, but you got to work within the reality of the
Yeah.
current situation. So,
Yeah. It is it is such a challenge I hear all the time from those I've worked with. So and you shared with me, I don't know if you mind sharing,
oh
you
yeah,
just like took another hit, right?
oh yeah.
Group therapy and
So I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but
yeah.
like, so it's like a trickle effect. So the federal government cuts funding for services, Medicaid, and then that money, the state is getting less money. So then the state has to make some choices
Right.
about what they're going to cover and what they don't. So on a random Wednesday, we get a letter that says you are no longer able to bill for this service. And
Wow.
it's a decent like it's a good service for clients. It's a group therapy service, and it is I don't know, a fifth of our of our income that we can no
Yeah.
longer go after. And that's from a business standpoint, but from like a therapy standpoint, there's a whole bunch of clients who were receiving a service that we
Yeah.
have to call on the phone and be like, I'm sorry, like starting today we can't provide the service anymore.
Wow.
So
Yeah. And being therapists and we're wired similar. You do this because you want to help people and the last thing in the world you want to do is say I can't help you anymore.
yep,
Uh,
for sure.
yeah. Um, so what well, let's go back to what inspired you to I love talking to people about kind of their purpose and why they do what they do. What was the impetus behind you wanting to do this? Because this is not an easy way to make a living. I know a lot of people go, "Oh, therapy. Oh, you just sit and talk to people all day." I've heard people say that before. I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah, yeah." And you're hearing people's deepest, darkest secrets, and you go home and you gotta like unpack that, set that aside, and try to live a normal life afterwards. So I know it. I know how tough it is. Um, what was the impetus behind you going into this business?
It's somewhat of a funny story. So I started as an engineering major
Wow, that's a leap.
in college, which is what I thought for a long period of my life.
Yeah,
And when you start as a therapist, I affectionately call them baby therapists, people who are not fully licensed yet. You need
yeah,
supervision. So when I started as a baby therapist, I had my supervisor, who was, just as an aside, exactly what you think a clinical psychologist looks like: white hair, bit like very regal. If it was the 60s, he would have had a pipe.
yeah,
Um, and so I was complaining about a thing in supervision one day, and he was like, "Look, there are two basic reasons why people get into this field. One is because they genuinely care about people and they're helpers and they want to help, right?
hmm
And when that gets skewed a little bit, it becomes like it's your responsibility to save people, right?
yeah,
So that's one side. The
right,
other side is that people are just genuinely interested in how people tick, right?
yeah,
They're curious about it. And what he cautioned me was, if you are a savior, like if you're somebody who's trying to do that, you will burn out in this field. And
yeah,
he's like, the good news is that you are a how people tick person. And I'm like, how do you know that, doc? And
yeah,
he was like, well, you started as an engineering major. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, you just went from how things work to how people work. And I was like, Thank you. Like
Yeah.
I needed to make that connection at some point.
Yeah.
So that was the long way of saying I am humans are the most interesting possible topic to talk about, right?
Yeah.
When I was an engineering major, the thing I didn't like about it was there was one right answer, right? You felt like a human robot. You just get to the
Yeah.
right answer. And I was like, I need a little bit more variety, right?
Yeah.
But now I've been in this field for 15 years and I'm like, it'd be great. One right answer. But yeah, it's fascinating. I am just genuinely interested in how people think and act and what we do and how we get in the way of ourselves and how to get
Yeah.
out of the way, like all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We share a lot of that in common because, I was a computer science major. I was a programmer for years and I was all into systems and applications. And then I realized I was more interested in the processes and how things got done more so than a line of code. And the
Yep.
code became very uninteresting to me. But how processes happen, how the workflow should happen, how the business kind of performs behind and that's why I'm a business coach now. It's like, yeah, I've made that transition. But yeah, it was years in the making of realization that yeah, the coding part just doesn't excite me anymore. It's not that
Yep.
I wasn't good at it. It just didn't give me the same energy. But
Yeah, it's one piece of the puzzle and you want to see the entire
yeah, yeah.
system. Yeah, yeah.
And so it's been a weird journey for me as well, kind of go into that. And I think I may have mentioned some of my clients call me their business therapist now. And I
Yeah.
always say, I'm not a therapist, nor do I play one on TV, but but I appreciate. I know why they say that because we end up kind of diving into a lot of the things that are going on and causing them stress and
Yeah.
trying to get through those things. I'm curious about the grant thing because I see this with the federal government and the cuts and everything. I see that with some of my other clients. That's a growing area, and some it's become a huge area. So, what's that look like? And do you have a dedicated person just looking at grants, or is that you doing that, or how do you find? I've always been I've been on some nonprofits where like we were like finding grants was just so hard.
Yeah.
What's the trick there, or if you don't mind sharing, if you can't
Oh
share.
yeah, no worries. Ours is even more complicated because we are not a nonprofit. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so we can't directly apply for grants. So
yeah,
we work with a lot of community partners, some nonprofits in the area. Um, and like I guess the short version is that we are working in collaboration on the grants, but it's their
right,
grants, and that is
right.
how we get funding to serve their people. Um, and so there's some workarounds for specific populations.
Mm,
And we have not pulled the trigger on any of these things I'm about to say, but we've toyed around with a lot of different
yeah,
ideas for funding. Can we do a Bombas model where instead of shoes you're selling t-shirts and the profits for the t-shirts go to help mental health treatment? We
mm,
like think about all these different ways. There's a company. I grew up in New York. There's a company in Buffalo called 26 Shirts. And it's called 26 Shirts because there's a new shirt every 2 weeks for the year.
okay,
Um, and every 2 weeks they sponsor somebody with medical needs. And it's cool. I'm a big Bills fan, so it's like Bills gear
yeah,
and like sporting stuff or whatever. But when you're buying that you're supporting somebody's cancer treatment or whatever. And they have grown so much over the years, and I really love the model.
mm,
And so it's something we're toying around with, but haven't
yeah.
gotten there yet.
That's interesting. My son-in-law's from Buffalo. They're big Bills fans too. They got
We all are,
my
yes.
my grandsons wear Bills gear all the time. It's
Nice.
it's a mafia for sure.
For sure, for sure.
It's a dedicated, they are a dedicated group. Um, I
Yep.
don't remember if we talked about that before or not, but that's funny.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yes.
Uh, so let's you've kind of talked historically now, like moving forward, grants is certainly part of that, but what's the future looking like for you? What's your strategy going forward?
Yeah. So we recently purchased another building kind of in the area, but it's a different market. So we're trying to replicate what we're doing in our outpatient world know, in other places. Um, we are having our own places is really important because that we feel like gives us an avenue to do other things. And going back to wellness, like Mainspring wellness, like the reason we didn't call it Mainspring therapy is because we can have other wellness aspects within Mainspring, right? So we have some folks who do yoga for our folks. I was talking to a nutritionist recently about how we can collaborate. We work with a few CrossFit gyms to kind of connect. So I guess next steps are how do we get more like well-rounded in the wellness area, because like everything goes together. Like you don't have mental health without physical health, and you don't have physical health without mental health. Like it all just kind of goes together. So
have you looked into like the corporate world there? Because there's companies are willing to spend a lot of money on wellness. If they can keep their people out of the doctor's office, they'll spend a lot of money helping them stay well before they get sick.
For sure. So we do, we work with a few EAP places. But that is something we have kind of like talked about, but never really pulled the trigger on. Like Mainspring 1.0 with all the court stuff was group oriented and it was teaching, right? And that feels very similar to work retreats and insight and all those things. It's like a little thought in our head and definitely an avenue to go forward. I think it's a good idea.
Well, I mean, this is so important in today's world. And I'd love to get I mean, we have seen such an uptick in mental health issues, especially with the younger generation, Gen Z in particular. I think a lot of that goes to social media and, I think COVID was a disservice. I mean, don't get me started on take a group of people, raise them with phones instead of human interaction, and then stick them in their basement for a year, and see how mentally healthy they are when they come out. Right,
the recipe for success for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your perspective on that? In the future of that, are we going to see a bending of the curve back to normalcy? Are we kind of perpetually just going to be getting worse and worse because of AI now and all sorts of other things?
Yeah, I think analog is going to become almost like a rebellious young person act. In a world where nobody interacts with humans, interacting with humans is going to be the punk rock of the 80s. You know what I mean? Like it's going to come back around. And just to frame it, like we are all getting lonelier. Relationships are getting shallower. And we're all getting lonelier. And it's funny, my neighbor, a friend of mine, is an urban planner in the area. He has an urban planning firm, and he uses the phrase third place a lot. So third place is you have your home, you have work, and then where's the third place where everyone knows your name, so to speak. Right. And that can be at a CrossFit gym, that could be at a bar, that could be, a softball league, it could be anything. But it is one of the things, like, as we're going through therapy and you think about the domains of people's lives, it's one of the things that we check in on and talk about all the time. Like, what's your social situation? Because it's almost more important than coming to therapy to have a good social group. We work in some of the schools in Northern Kentucky, and we are very involved in their like after school programming stuff because I don't think any kid wants to stay in school, but like, let's get involved in some stuff that's not the class. So you can just kind of talk with, peers in a healthy way. My kid, just as a weird aside, he's 10, kind of introvert, shy, whatever. He started playing soccer. Now he's got a whole bunch of soccer friends and his confidence is through the roof. And he's got he's got a therapist as a father, but it's not me. It is just, he's out there. He feels like he belongs. And that is really the key to the baseline of mental health.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So what's next for you as we wrap up? What's next on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah. Continue to grow, continue to serve our neighborhood as best we can. And then for me specifically and my business partner, it is to essentially get better at business. That's one of the things that we are like, we were not expecting, right? You start a therapy practice, you think you're going to be doing therapy. We are not. I personally probably do 20% therapy, and the rest is working on business, right?
Yeah.
So figuring out how to get our systems as lean as possible so we can serve more people. Just kind of getting better with setting the business up to be in 2026 and survive and thrive,
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. And what neighborhood specifically? I know you're in Northern Kentucky, but
yeah. So our office is in Covington, our main office.
Okay. Yeah.
In the next few months, we will move to Florence, Kentucky.
Okay.
As a second location. And then Covington schools, Ludlow, Kentucky schools, and Newport, Kentucky schools is where
I have been in all three of those towns in the last couple of weeks. So
nice.
Few people know where Ludlow is.
Right. Yeah. Well, I didn't grow up here, and it's interesting because the towns are so small. You drive and you're like, I didn't even realize I'm in a new town right now.
Absolutely.
I think that's why people say Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that is a huge region, of course. So, well, thanks so much for being on the show. One last question I love to ask is if you're talking to, 22-year-old version of yourself, someone who's like coming out of school and trying to decide what to do, and they're thinking about starting a business like this, what advice would you give?
It's a good question.
Don't do it. No.
Don't do it. Stay away. No. I think the most important thing is you got to be in it for the right reason. And what the right reason is, this is not really poetic, but it's for the love of the game. You got to love the process. You can't be in it for outcomes or to get rich or any of those things. It really has to be for the love of the game. And I think the only principle that Matt, my business partner, and I kind of stand by is this idea of hang around theory. You got to be in the game to learn the game and to understand the game, right? And in order to hang around, you've got to have good distress tolerance. You got to be able to deal with the ups and downs, not take them personally, and know you're playing a long game and not trying to win the day,
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I as a coach, and I'm part of a system of coaches, I mentor a lot of the younger ones, the newer, or not, I say younger, newer. Some of them are older than me, right?
Yeah.
The newer ones. And I have that very same conversation. This is a long game. If you're looking to make a fortune your first year, you might be the one out of 1,000 that does that. But it's a long game. I've been at this 8 years. I'm still figuring it out. But so anyway, that's great advice, and I appreciate you sharing it. Well, Chris, thanks for coming on the program. If someone's in Northern Kentucky and they want to, they need to talk to someone like you, how do they find you?
Sure. They can find us at our website. It's mainspringnky.com. You can sign up, you can ask us questions, and we'll get you in and get you going.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on the program. Appreciate you sharing your story and appreciate what you do. I mean, you're doing very important work. So
of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.